G'day runners, here we go again. This time we're racing the Sun Run, a fun run held here on the beautiful northern beaches, although I can assure you there is absolutely nothing fun about this one. It has to be the most brutal but picturesque 10Ks that we have here in Sydney, Australia. 10,000 entrants, let's see how we go in this one. There's about 100 metres of elevation on this track and it's a very humid 27 degrees already. We're going to be running the majority of the time into a headwind as well, so it doesn't make for the easiest of racing conditions, but not to worry, we've got a Teletubby along with us for company. So I don't tend to run too many 10k races, mostly because I think it's the most brutal distance out there. You pedal to the metal the entire time. My last 10k was actually back in October, where I set a PB in a time of 35.36. Again, not on the flattest of courses, but nothing like today. That had more gradual elevation, whereas this has a few more brutal climbs and a couple of sharpeners. And I went out far too quickly in that one as well, so hopefully I've learnt my lesson and can PB today. So on the start line, I've said to myself to not go out too fast in this first K. I know that it's got this pretty big initial climb that we're coming up to, so I'm aiming for around 3:45 pace or so that I don't burn too many matches up too early. But I can't give myself too much to do on the back end, and I'll need to get some of that time back. So we're going to need to average a 3:32 overall to beat that PB, which seems a bit ambitious halfway up this hill. Any of you seen him yet? I have. That's Obi-Wan Kenobi from last week. We'll have to keep an eye on him. With this one being a fairly major race of the season, in prep for this I've had a bit of a mini taper. And at this time of year I'm in a bit of maintenance mode in general before entering marathon blocks, especially this year for the Gold Coast Marathon. So I'm probably turning over about 60 to 65k a week at this point, combining a couple of VO2 max and tempo sessions thrown in there. But this week I've dropped that right back down to about 25k before the race, and dropped the intensity too to give the body a bit of time to recover for today's onslaught. And already my heart rate is pretty high and I'm breathing a bit heavier than I'd like to be. This hill is pretty steep, so trying to get any recovery back in the legs is pretty tough. You just kind of let your legs go with it. Oh, and it looks like poor Lala might have poed themselves already. Okay, so we've come through this first K in 3:34. It's a fair bit quicker than I was hoping for at this point. Remember that I'm aiming for about a 3:45 in this first K. So probably burn a match more than I would like to have. 3:34 first K. Luckily the next few Ks take the same rough kind of route to last week's Parkrun, which is pretty flat. So hopefully I can get into my rhythm and settle into a pace of around the 3:30 mark. Now this race is being run from Dingy Y to Manly, which hugs the coastline. It then cuts in and back out again. Starts at the beautiful DY beach and ends at the even more beautiful Manly beach. It has to be one of the most picturesque start and finish lines out there. Okay, so we come through the second K in 3:26. We've managed to claw back a bit of time. Remember that we're aiming for a 3:32 average to beat that PB. We managed to claw back a bit of time from the hill on the first K, and if anything, we've probably pushed the pace a little bit here too much too early. Heart rate is already up to 177, and I'm breathing quite heavily. a bit of footage of some start line vibes. I've been really lucky to get a seeded start in this race, so I'm able to get out towards the front. The self-seed in these events can make it really difficult to make your way through a pack in the first few 100 metres if you're in one of those further back corrals. So having this really helps me to get out in front. I think there'd be a better way of sorting them into timed areas instead of coloured corrals and make it a bit clearer, but what do I know? Third kilometre in 3:24, we are motoring. Although the crosswind is starting to hit hard and heart rate is already at 182 despite going at around a 330 to 340 pace. Slightly worrying given we're only at the 3k point. To say that I am sweaty is an understatement. I was sweating on the start line.
You were sweaty?
Oh, tell me about it. Story of my life.
I don't normally like running in a vest or a singlet, so today I'm wearing a t-shirt. Probably wasn't the right day for it. On my feet I've got an old pair of ASIC Metaspeed Edges. I've got about 800 kilometres in them though. They've been a good shoe to me, but I think I should upgrade. Next time I'll bust out the Alpha Flies instead. Back to the race and things are looking up. Looks like I'm about to overtake Barry. Coming through the 4th K now in 3:33. Although, if I'm honest, it feels more like 7. Bang on the kind of splits that I need to be doing, though, to get that PB. Heart rate is creeping up. And I think it's fair to say that I'm working anaerobically at this point. I'm starting to think perhaps I might have overcooked it. But I'm in a pretty steady group and I'm just trying to keep settled and just keep ploughing away. Just see how we go. Big thanks to these cheerleaders coming up. I've got absolutely no idea where they come from, but they certainly help to distract me, at least for a few seconds. Just come up to the 5K, you'll have been able to see from that last kilometre that my heart rate is hitting about 185, which is definitely too high too soon. But we've gone through the 5th in 3:40, and that's the halfway point in 17:38. I'm kind of doing some rough calculations, which will get me through in about 35:16 if I can hold on to this. Although that is going to be easier said than done. It's a big if though, and it's at this point that I'm starting to think that I really have got out too quick. The hills and the wind is really kicking up my heart rate, and I'm feeling every single one of those 184 beats a minute. And to make things worse, Han Solo comes from absolutely nowhere. Pink Shirt is really trying to kick on. I wonder what they were handing out at that water station. It's at this point I'm starting to experience some camera trouble as well. But as we rejoin, we're on yet another climb. Pink Shirt's well and truly gone. I'm just trying to stick with him here, but taking one look at a heart rate of 186. Only having gone through close to 6k is completely unsustainable. I've got to let him go. Bear in mind that prior to this, my maximum heart rate I thought was 188, so you do the math. I'm already well cooking on gas at this point. 6k in 3:47. Dropped a fair bit with that headwind and those hills. And what's worse is that I know that we're dropping into a bit of a bowl, which we're going to have to climb out of as well. So things aren't looking good from here on in. Cheeky look at the watch there. I'm looking to try and see how far we've got as the final big climb is just starting around the corner. And I'm absolutely horrified to see that I've got 3 kilometers left. Coming through the 7K in 3:36. We are really having to tough it out now. And nobody wants to see an 8% gradient with 3 kilometers to go. We've hit heart rates at this point that I didn't even know was possible. So perhaps a miracle is about to happen. I'm absolutely hanging in there, albeit with my fingertips. As unfortunately is my camera, just as things are starting to get real ugly. Before it cuts out, I can tell you that we went through the climb in 4:08 and the penultimate K in 3:28, which means that PB is well and truly out the window, along with my dignity at this point. The camera decides to kick back in with a few hundred metres to go as we are toughing it out down Manly beachfront. We've blown up and we are juicing the lemon as much as we can to get to the finish. Heart rate hitting a whopping 192 beats a minute. And I still managed to get a sprint finish inside the last 50 metres, which made my heart rate hit a max of 195, which I didn't even think was possible. Finishing in a time of 36:27, a fair bit slower than what I was hoping for, but given the engines blew at the 8K mark, it's a semi-respectable finish. On reflection, I'm pretty proud of being able to push through the pain cave and giving it my all on the last K. I've fallen for it again though and got caught up in the excitement of the race early on and really not focused, going out far too quick and blowing up towards the end. When will I learn? If only I'd have listened to myself and my 3 basic tips for my beginner runners. If you want to see that video or last week's Parkrun PB attempt, then click here. Ta-ra.